They do tend to like fish meal boilies as well as the sweet baits on here, so I just cover my options and make sure there's just a bit of everything in there. And we'll just mix that whole lot up. When you get to that sort of consistency, that should be fine for a spod, but literally within 10 minutes it's going to be a little bit too sticky. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit more juice from the 3 particles. Tiger nut one really tends to hold it together, being so sticky. So just give that a good mix in through there. Now that's coming a bit better. That's going to fall out through the water, and you can see there that it's got like a cloudy, milky edge all the way around it, and that creates a huge cloud around the baited area, and hopefully, you know, is enough attraction there to actually pull them in visually as well as the actual taste. And then just one last thing, just before I do spot out, I'll take a little bit more of the dry product, and what I quite often do is put an amount of spod mix into the bottom of the spod, then some of the dry product, then a little bit more dry wet spod mix. And what that's going to do then, hopefully, is create a cloud of dry product which is going to flow up and down as it actually starts taking on water, but just little tiny particles of food. So again, we're not feeding the fish up too quickly. We're going to hopefully get as many chances as we can on that. And there we go, that's just lovely now, ready to be spotted out. Just going to wash my hands off down here and hopefully show you what happens when this whole mixture gets out into the lake. Now if you look at that area there, I mean, that milky cloud is going to be coming off the bottom and seeping away and moving around, hopefully with the undertow in the water, which is going to be visible for an awful long distance, certainly a lot more than, you know, the small amount of bait on the water. It just gives you that extra pull and edge in there, and within that you've got all the different juices from the particles that we put in there. We've got the crushed hemp, we've got the crushed peanut, we've got all the different fish meals and bits and pieces, and it just all adds to create a more interesting area for the carp. I think the more that we can confuse them with different sized baits and different kinds of presentation of those baits, then the better. If you're doing something a little bit different to what the person next to you is doing, then you're going to stand a chance, hopefully, of getting a few more takes. And you know, as far as this lake is concerned, one extra take could be the making of your season. There's some really fantastic fish in here. Okay, just a couple of important things about spodding. We've got the line in the line clip at the distance. We've cast the spot out there, clipped it up so that it's right on top of the area that we want to fish. I use a spot that's heavy enough to actually be able to cast out there and actually do that with nothing in there, so that I've got no wasted bait anywhere in the area. The next thing is just make sure that the spod isn't filled higher than 3/4. Just about to that sort of level there is perfect. I always use a finger stool as well, so that I can really put some pressure into the cast. And the idea behind that is, what we're going to do is overcast it, put the rod back as we're casting, let it hit the clip, throw the rod forward, and that'll turn the spod and actually let it kiss the surface rather than dive straight down, with you know, there will be a chance then that we're going to spook some fish out of the area. So let's just have a go with that. So line up through on your area, overcast it through, hold your rod back. As you feel it hit the clip, throw the rod forward, and the spod then just turns and just kisses the surface, turns upside down, and obviously empties your baits right onto the area. And we've got nothing coming out of the spod all the way out there, which means we're not going to leave a trail of bait that the fish can well come on the inside and come feeding off the area that we're fishing onto. Normally I'll put anywhere between 10 and 12 spods out there, depending on the distance and depending on how many fish or how much fish activity is around there. That can come right down to a couple an hour, and then just keep trickling a little bit in, any sort of indication at all on the rods. Generally I'll put another spod over the top just to keep it topped up. Okay, we'll just run through that just one more time. The spod just filled to about 3/4. After 3/4, just to that level there. And then what we're going to do is again overcast it, getting high with the spod, letting the cast go through, pulling the rod back. As it hits the clip, throw the rod forward, the spod will turn and then just kiss the surface. Okay, right, what we're going to do now is look at a couple of the rigs that I tend to use on here. What I try and do is make sure that I've got a variety of different presentations. This particular one here I use for either snowman or a double bottom bait. What we've got here is obviously the top bait there is a pop-up, the bottom bait is a bottom bait, and the two are going to counter each other out and give us a nice snowman presentation where they're going to sink very, very slowly and just nestle there in the lake bed. When the carp come in then, hopefully the bait is going to move a lot more naturally. The other key thing is the actual length of the hair. On this one here it's about 1 centimetre. I will use that anywhere up to about 1.5 inches, but mainly using the longer hairs when I change it around and fish this with 2 bottom baits. What we've got is a long shank Camazan hook, 15-pound mantis hook length, and that's not stripped back at all. I tend to leave it totally unstripped so that I'm trying to get it to be as difficult as possible to actually eject out the mouth, and I found that stripping it back and leaving it solid, I've certainly had much better hooking leaving the whole thing solid. That's attached underneath there to a ring, and then the hair off the top there onto the top of the ring. The other good thing about this presentation is most of the rigs nowadays are timed very, very tight onto the back of a ring on the hook, and obviously this one's going to give us a lot more freedom and versatility, being able to change from a snowman to a bottom presentation very, very quickly. So that's the first one. Second one, a standard pop-up rig. Rigs on Manor really, I don't think you need to get too complicated. The key factor on the lake definitely is location. If you find the fish and put a reasonably presented rig on top of them, you're going to stand a very, very good chance. This one here, what I've got is a ring attached to 15-pound mantis which has been stripped back, and then just a simple knotless knot strip back there, and I tend with these particular rigs to try and balance it very, very gently so that it's sinking extremely slowly and just nestling down. Not really too worried whether that bait does actually sink after a while and come down on the bottom, because that's going to give us a real nice movement on the bait, hopefully when the carp come in and start fizzing around. On the back of the shank, the ring does help when it blows back, pull the hook in, and you do get extremely good hook holds on that one. So just a standard pop-up. The third one is the good old imitation. I vary this one around from using a single piece of imitation corn. Sometimes I soak it up in a bit of flavour. Bit of Richworth tutti flavour is always very good with it. Just knotless knotted onto a size 10 big T, 15-pound mantis, and I'll change that around. Sometimes I'll put a single piece of ordinary sweet corn, sometimes I'll fish a piece of maize on there, and I find that with a 15-pound mantis and a single piece of the imitation, it just sinks very, very slowly. So we've not got a pop-up, we've not got a bottom bait, we've got a bait which is just hovering and dancing around the lake bed. Normally fish quite short on that, either on a PVA stick or a small PVA bag over an area spotted mix. One little edge on the imitation corn is to get an old film canister, fill it with a bit of flavour or a bit of extract or whatever you want to flavour the actual imitation maize with. Leave it soaking in there all the time, and then what I do is I put a pair of forceps in there, give it a real good squeeze underneath the liquid, let it go and actually take it out so that it's actually going to take in some of the liquid and last a lot longer. One thing with Man I have noticed over the years, the number of the very big fish in here that do get caught on a single piece of corn or a single piece of imitation. And I think it's the same right across the country now, that it is a very good presentation. Whether they're picking up because they're trying to eat something or they're just interested in what it is, I don't know. But the number of carp that get caught every year, it's certainly one you want to have in your armoury. And as long as you've got these varieties of presentation, I think you're covering your swim in a much better way. They do tend to change from wanting a bottom bait presentation to a pop-up, and it will get you some extra takes on the lake, so it's well worth messing about and making sure you've got a variety tied up so that you can get on with it and try something a little bit different to what everyone else is. I'll just run through now exactly what I do when I try to find a spot. The most important thing of all is making sure you've got a decent braided line on your marker rod. Obviously there's no stretch in the braid, and it makes finding these little tiny spots of whether it be gravel or silt or a bit of finding the edge of a weed bed an awful lot more easier with the vibration through the tip. So what I'll do is put the marker out to the